Managing Oneself, an article by Peter Drucker. Drucker said, today in a society where most of us are knowledge workers and will have a useful working life of about 50 years, it's essential to learn to manage ourselves. Only then we will be able to place ourselves where our contribution is most valued at all times. Your strength is related to feedback analysis, which is the only way to identify your strength. Whenever you make a key decision or take a key action, write down what you expect will happen. 9 or 12 months later, compare the actual results with your expectations. Several implications for action follow from the feedback analysis. First, concentrate on your strength. Put yourself where your strength can produce results. Second, work on improving your strengths. Analysis will rapidly show where you need to improve skills or acquire new ones. It will also show the gaps in your knowledge that can be filled. Third, discover where your intellectual arrogance is causing disabling ignorance and overcome it. Feedback will reveal when the problem is a lack of manners. Manners is a law of nature that two moving bodies in contact with each other create friction. This is true for human beings. Simple things like saying please and thank you enable two people to work together whether they like each other or not. One should waste as little effort as possible on improving areas of low competence. How do I perform? How a person performs is a given, just as what a person is good at or bad at. A person's way of performing can be slightly modified, but it's unlikely to be completely changed. Am I a reader or a listener? Few people know this. Not knowing about this aspect of yourself can seriously hurt you. It's difficult for a reader to become a good listener and vice versa. There are people who learn by writing. Some people learn by taking notes, some by doing, others learn by hearing themselves talk. To manage yourself effectively, you also have to ask, do I work well with people or am I a loner? If you do work well with people, you then must ask, in what relationship? Some people work best as subordinates, some people work best as team members, others work best alone. Do I produce results as a decision maker or as an advisor? Do I perform well under stress or do I need a highly structured and predictable environment? Do I work best in a big organization or small one? Few people work well in all kinds of environments. What are my values? Ethics requires that you ask yourself, what kind of person do I want to see in the mirror in the morning? To be effective in an organization, a person's values must be compatible with the organization's values. They don't need to be the same, but they must be close enough to exist. Otherwise, the person will not only be frustrated but also will not produce results. Where do I belong? Most people don't really know where they belong until they are well past their mid 20s. By that time, they should know the answers to the three questions. What are my strengths? How do I perform? And what are my values? They can and should decide where they belong. Successful careers are not planned. They develop when people are prepared for opportunities because they know their strengths, their method of work, and their values. Knowing where one belongs can transform an ordinary person, hardworking and competent, into an outstanding performer. What should I contribute? A plan can usually cover no more than 18 months and still be reasonably clear and specific. So the question should be, where and how can I achieve results that will make a difference within the next year and a half? First, the results should be hard but within reach. Second, the results should be meaningful. They should make a difference. Finally, results should be visible and measurable. From this will come a course of action, what to do, where and how to start, and what goals and deadlines to set. Responsibility for relationships. Managing the boss. Bosses are neither a title on the organization chart nor a function. They are individuals and are entitled to do their work in the way they do it best. People who work with them should observe them to find out how they work and to adapt themselves to what makes their bosses most effective. The same holds true for all your coworkers. Managing yourself requires taking responsibility for relationships. The first is to accept the fact that other people are as much individuals as you yourself are. This means that they too have their strengths, their ways of getting things done, and their values. Therefore, you have to know the strengths, the performance modes, and the values of your coworkers. The second is to take responsibility for communication. People don't know what other people are doing and how they do their work and what result they expect because they haven't asked and therefore haven't been told. The second half of your life. There are three ways to develop a second career. The first is actually to start one, like moving from one kind of an organization to another. The second way is to develop a parallel career. Many people are very successful in their first careers, stay in the work they have been doing, but create a parallel job, usually in a non-profit organization that takes another 10 hours of a week work. Finally, there are the social entrepreneurs who have been very successful in their first careers. They love their work, but it no longer challenges them. In many cases, they keep on doing what they have been doing all along, but spend less and less of their time on it. They also start another activity, usually a nonprofit one. Conclusion. Managing oneself demands that each knowledge worker think and behave like a chief executive officer. Further, the shift from manual workers who do as they are told to knowledge workers who have to manage themselves profoundly challenges social structure. Knowledge workers outlive organizations and they are mobile. The need to manage oneself is therefore creating a revolution in human affairs.
Hello, my dear colleagues, how are you? This is Mrs. Abir. From my point of view, I believe that the part about what are my strengths is the most significant part in this article. So let me introduce you some tips about it. The only way to discover your strengths is through feedback analysis. So, whenever you make or take decision, write down your expectation. What will happen? And 9 and 12 months later, compare your actual result with your expectations. Okay? This simple method will show you within a fairly short period where your strengths lie. And this is the most important thing to know. Then it will show you what you are doing or failing to do, which deprive you of the full benefit of your strengths. And also, it will help you to know where you aren't particularly competent. And in addition, it will help you to know where you have no strengths and cannot perform. There are several implications for action to be followed for feedback analysis. For example, you need to concentrate on your strengths, as put yourself where your strengths can produce results. Also, work on improving your strengths, as analysis will show you where you need to improve skills or acquire new ones. And in addition, discover where your intellectual arrogance is causing disabling ignorance and overcome it. It is really essential to remedy your bad habits. If analysis show that someone's brilliant work fails again and again, as soon as cooperation from others is required, it probably indicates a lack of manners. And finally, there is a tip for you. Remember, comparing your expectation with results indicates what not to do. We should waste effort on improving areas of low competence. It takes far more energy and work to improve from incompetence to mediocrity than it takes to improve from first rate performance to excellent. So, my tip for you to search for your strengths where they are and work on improving your work. Wish you all the best.
Hello, everybody. Now, the second point of the most points or the most significant points in our reading, and I'm going to talk about responsibility for relationships. So, managing yourself requires taking responsibility for relationships, and this part or my presentation has two parts. I'm going to talk about them in brief. We need to accept the fact that other people are as much individuals as you yourself are. This means that they too have their strengths, they too have their ways of getting things done, they have their values. And to be effective, therefore, you have to know the strengths, the performance modes, and the values of your co-workers. The first secret of effectiveness is to understand the people you work with and depend on so that you can make use of their strengths, their ways of working, and their values. The second part of relationship responsibility is taking responsibility for communication. Most of conflicts arise from the fact that people do not know what other people are doing and how they do their work, or what contributions the other people are concentrating on and what results they expect. The reason they do not know is that they have not asked and therefore have not been told. Today, the great majority of people work with others who have different tasks and responsibilities. So we need to know how the people we are working with uh, they can do their jobs, the way they are doing their jobs. We need to know. We need to ask them so they can tell us about their uh, tasks. Here we have an example of the marketing vice president. Uh, she may have come out of sales and know everything about sales, but she knows nothing about things she has never done, like pricing, advertising, packaging, and the other thing is that she has never done. So the people who do these things must make sure that the marketing vice president understands what they are trying to do and why they are trying to do it, how they are going to do it, and what results to expect. So, the marketing vice president here should ask them and they should tell her about their jobs and their way of doing their jobs. Okay? We need to know that organizations are no longer built on force, but on trust. So everybody in the team work should trust everybody in his team. Okay, so we communicate, we tell everybody in the team how we are working, how we do our jobs, and of course we have trust among the team. So now we see that taking responsibility for relationships is therefore an absolute necessity. The existence of trust between the people who are in one team does not necessarily mean that they like one another. It means that they understand one another, they trust one another, they communicate with one another, they tell each other how they do their jobs and why they do their jobs in that way. Thank you for listening.
Managing oneself in real life. I've asked myself so many questions so far. What are my strengths? What are my values? Where I belong? And what should I contribute? As a principal, should I set up a short-term plan or long-term plan for my school? I believe both are required for the progress of productivity. But the crucial point here is that years of an assigned principal might exceed the time of his short-term plans or might end earlier. I noticed that most principals of governmental schools tend to create their own plans and decline what the prior principal's plans or targets were. The article suggests that we change this fact and decide future plans for the organization itself based on the priorities and needs of the school, instead of the leader or the principal. Thus, illustrating compatible values for the school and principal could be the reason behind designing effectively functioned plan. Have you ever heard of a principal called for an intern and asked him for help? Maybe to teach him something? I wish the answer is yes for you, but for me, I have not. But why? I think there are two reasons for that. First, a principal might feel anxious that teacher might see him as untrustworthy. It's a culture-based reason. Second reason is principal as well as teachers missed introducing their abilities, responsibilities, and skill to each other. I'm afraid to say, for my 15 years of experience with more than 8 principals, I have never been asked what is my role and what are my strengths points or abilities that could be useful for my school. We should have no fear asking for help or consider others' abilities, as the fear to ask creates no opportunities. A principal is the role model in his community. To be able to do so, he should embrace healthy and friendly relationships with others. Anxious relationship and shallow connection, working on challenges rather than digging deeper to fix the reasons of these challenges, which mainly caused by lack of connection. A small school called Martyr Hamdi Primary School at a small village called El Gudayda in Sharqiya. It was the stereotype of governmental Egyptian schools. But in 2014, Mrs. Samra, who was a teacher at the same school, was promoted to the position of the school principal. She has great connection with all the staff. She started by cleaning the school herself, arranging seating for kids and sewing tablecloths for teachers' desks. She called the school, and I quote, "My first home. Students are my kids. Teachers are my family." She cared about each person at school. She visited 6 students at houses. She helped teachers with their personal problems. She believed once a teacher feels that he is appreciated, he would appreciate students. Today, the school buildings are very much like private schools building. All students are dressed neatly. Classrooms are totally organized. The educational environment is healthy and friendly, and teachers are enjoying their job. Wrapping up with the quote of John Angels, connection capacities include emotional awareness, humility, the willingness to reveal self to others, genuine curiosity about the other, an appreciation for what the other is up against, and the ability to listen. Thank you.